Hey, welcome back. Here on the channel today, we've got this Zodiac. I bought this locally, got a really good deal on it. We're going to tear this watch down, talk about some of this company's history, and show you how this one goes. So we're going to jump right into it. Here's how it was running before I got it. The only thing I did off camera to begin with was I got the case back off. That thing was stuck on there. It's pretty common. Did not want to come off. This case back, it's got that perlage in there, real nice looking. One other thing I did was I added some oil to a spot of rust that you'll see. Just kind of like trying to penetrate some of that rust so we'd have an easier time getting down into it. So right here we've got this case clamp on this side, and this case clamp here is the one I was talking about. I added some oil there so it could soak and penetrate some of that rust so we'd have an easier time breaking it apart later. So this movement's the 7072. It's their automatic version. I believe it's an in-house movement. You have to correct me below if I'm wrong about that. A lot of the Zodiac automatic movements have this in here. Parts are rare, movements rare, hard to find. Actually, we come across several missing parts or damaged parts in this watch, and it took me a long time to find parts, or they're expensive when you do find them. I ended up just buying a spare watch as a parts movement. It was also missing one of the parts I needed, so I had to buy more parts anyway. Uh, that being said, this watch has some special stuff in it that I'll get into later. So as we tear this down, I want you to keep an eye on parts that are missing. We can already see a few, right? So there's a screw missing on this Automatic Works bridge. There at the top of the movement, you can see it. Um, yeah, so we're going to get this rotor off here, and then we'll start inspecting under the rotor. This is just a little clamp here that holds that center post, or holds the rotor to the center post there. It's pretty stuck on there. A lot of the time, these, for some reason, are gummed up. So yeah, we'll check that out. So that's the gear on the back. Touches those reversing wheels. But right here is the screw that's missing. The first one of an issue we find. These are the reversing wheels. All right. Try and see if we can get this movement out of here. And I took one of the case clamps out. The one that's rusty is not going to come out. So we're going to just wiggle this thing out of here best we can without damaging anything. And yeah, so we got it. Nice. Now this dial, pretty good shape. I can't really complain about that. Let's go ahead and check it for some radiation. Well, that's just standard background, pretty low actually, so we're definitely safe to work on this. These are my Bergeon high polished hand removers. These probably won't scratch the dial, but we'll go ahead and use plastic anyway, just because this watch is going to be in my personal collection more than likely, and I don't want to scratch the dial or damage it more than it already is. Now, okay, we got the dial screw here, and oh, we passed it. We'll go ahead and get this one out, but if you notice, that's missing. There's another screw missing, so that's the second part missing so far, as well as the damaged part we found on the case clamp. So we've got 3 screws missing or damaged, and the case clamp is damaged. Let's go ahead and take this dial screw out of here. Yeah, that's one of them missing there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get this other automatic bridge screw out of here, and we'll lift it off and see what we've got underneath. That lifted off fairly easily. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. This whole mechanism will come apart and be serviced separately from the movement. There wasn't any wind. I'll let all the wind out. So while we're doing that, I want to get into some of the history. So this watch company was founded in like 1882, but the name Zodiac didn't actually become part of that until 1908. 1908 happens to be the same year Rolex was founded. Just interesting note. And we'll jump back up to when this watch. So the first Zodiac Seawolf was released in 1953, and it was one of the very first dive watches introduced to the market, alongside the Submariner and the 50 Fathoms. This watch held its own against those back in the day. All right, here you can see me taking the click and click spring out. I'll throw a little bit of history at you here and there throughout this video, anytime it gets slow and boring. So here I'm taking the balance screw out. We'll go ahead and try and get this balance out of here before we tear it down any further. We don't want to damage anything. A lot of the times you can just pick these right up with the tweezers, but I'm going to have to get a screwdriver. Yeah, I just not want it to come. So there's a little indice there you can pop that up with. That's what it's there for, actually. Be very careful to pull that out of there. You don't want to damage the hairspring at all. I like to set it flat and pick it up with the wheel, just like that, so we don't damage anything. It's very, very fragile, very small. If you've ever seen one in person, you'll understand. Alright, cut some of this footage out, just a little bit here and there, of screws, because of how long this video is. I know everybody likes to see everything, but alright, so that's pretty cool. There's a jewel for the top of the barrel arbor. I'm starting to see that this sealed barrel, this is one of those special things I was talking about, quote unquote sealed barrel, lifetime barrel. This one's been opened before. I didn't plan on opening this. This watch was running, and these are like beveled, and basically if you open it, it's a really big pain to get it back together. I have another spare, and eventually if both of this one and the spare that I have fail, I will put a serviceable mainspring in. They're just expensive, and this one was working fine, and I have another one. So for now, we're just going to leave that barrel alone and just leave it just like that. This watch has some special parts in it that are abnormal from what you've seen before. So this wheel I pulled out right here is an offset cannon pinion drive with a friction fit gear on it. This is your standard center wheel. And then the other wheels are your standard wheels. Yeah, so in the 1960s, this watch was worn by a guy, or a similar watch, not this one specifically. If it was, I'd be rich. All right. Well, this model of watch was worn by a guy in the Northern California area of San Francisco. And what that guy was doing was murdering. So in the 60s, this watch company was known for a guy serial killing in Northern California. And yeah, that's just a little bit of history for you. Here's another damaged part. So I couldn't find these anywhere, to be honest. This is the clutch wheel and the winding pinion, and both of these are pretty damaged. The winding pinion actually, wasn't that bad, but I've found some new ones. So yeah, some more damaged parts. Here we are. This is the calendar wheel. That's what rotates every 12 hours to 24? Every 24 hours. I don't know why it'd be 12. Every 24 hours. This is like a spring lever for the calendar. This watch doesn't have a quick set function, but it does have a pretty nifty little function where you can set it and then wind it back about 2 hours, and then you can re-jump the time. So, quick set, not quick set, will it break it? I don't know if it's supposed to be done that way. I just happened to figure it out while I was working on it. I tried some different angles. I'm not happy with this angle. A lot of my footage is from this angle. We change it up later on in the video. I see another screw missing. Do you see the screw missing? Yes, it is the one on the opposite side of that hold down bridge for the cannon pinion and hour wheel. Well, or intermediate wheel. Probably not the hour wheel. I don't know. I'd have to look in my book. This is a spring for the detent for the calendar wheel. But that's what, I don't even know. 4 or 5 parts missing, 3 parts damaged. I should have kept track. It was a lot. I know that. Luckily, the movement I bought had almost all the parts I needed. That great wheel I was talking about with the offset cannon, I needed one of those, but I actually just ordered a part and, I ordered a tool and was able to adjust the friction on that offset gear. And that allowed me to use the part I had, not have to have a new one. The movement I bought was missing that part. That was the only part it was missing. So, you know. Alright, this is the yoke spring. Going away. Throw that. This spring doesn't come out. Just leave that one in there. Doesn't need to move. Yoke spring. I think a setting lever spring earlier. I called it a yoke spring. Not sure. Yeah, this one. That screw, by the way, has to go back in there for that setting lever. That has to go back in before the main plate bridge is on there. We make that mistake later. And I know that, too. I've worked on a bunch of watches. Well, you live and learn. Alright, so here we're going to just, load all these parts real quick. And while we're doing that, let's go back into some of the history. So, this watch company, actually, Zodiac, became bankrupt in the 90s. It was bought by a guy that formerly worked for or owned Tag Heuer. I don't know. But it ended up being bankrupt. And in the early 2000s, the watch Fossil Group ended up buying it. And Fossil Group still owns it to today. Alright, back to this. Now, this is the automatic works for this watch. And looks like it's in great condition. Some of them have jewels where those bushings are at. Totally fine that it doesn't. They look to be in okay shape. Those are the screws you take out, take it apart. Now these reversing wheels that are between these two plates, you don't want to take those apart. You can, I think, take those apart, but I'm pretty sure you'll break them. So what we do instead is we clean them, we let them dry, and then we put them in this lubrication here called Lubetta. And that will clean, and when the solution dries, will leave a lubricating film on these parts. Later, when you see me assembling them, that's what the white, greasy looking stuff is. It's the residue left over from this Lubetta. And this stuff seemed to work pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. It's a new purchase of mine. I got a couple other greases coming in, but Lubetta. That's for reversing wheels. And anything else that you don't want to take apart, probably. Okay, this is the escape wheel going back in. All these parts got inspected under the microscope, cleaned, pivots cleaned, inspected. Everything's good. While we're assembling that, I'm going to get back to this Fossil Group. So the Fossil Group buying these Zodiac company during the early 2000s began to introduce homages of its history, past watches that Zodiac produced. And you can find these watches produced today. Well, not this specific one, but similar models that are referencing it. And they're actually pretty good movements, I think, and pretty good watches for the price. I'm interested in buying one eventually. We'll see. I'll probably just hold on to this one for a while before I get one of those. Next watch on my list is probably the Longines Zulu Time. I don't know what that bar is there. I didn't do any research on that. I don't even know. Somebody below could maybe tell me. Actually, you know what I think that is? I think that's a... without researching it, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking that bar is what stops the movement when you pull the crown out. Let me know below. I don't know. I didn't look into that at all. It came off and went back in the same spot. That's not typically how they do, what do they call that? My brain isn't working. Well, I don't know. Somebody below, let me know. I know the Ben wrist we worked on had it. Pull the crown out. Hack. It's called a hack. Come on. Watch guy here. Alright. Now, you can see these jewels are actually very easy to line up. Good thing that that's the case, because I had to take it apart again. We're having an issue here. You know, you can see the great wheel pivots going in, and then the third wheel. But here we go. We can't get it lined up because the escape wheel. And it seems like the escape wheel is always escaping. That's probably why they call it that. It's the hardest wheel to get into any main plate bridge ever on every single watch. Once I get that lined up, everything's good. We'll do a little hold down with this plastic tool and get these screws in here. I had to take that back apart for two reasons. Actually, I took it back apart twice. The first time, if you didn't see, and if you're following this along to work on your watch, you should know this. The screw for the setting lever needs to go in there before this bridge goes on. Okay? You can't squeeze it in there. It's got to go. I've been working on these watches without taking pictures at this point, and I make some mistakes. I'll show you later on what I'm talking about, but yeah. Okay, so untouched barrel going back in. Don't care. I've got several of them. If this one breaks, I'll replace it with the other one. If that one breaks, I'll put a serviceable mainspring and barrel in. They're like $150. I didn't want to spend that. I already had several hundred into this watch after buying it. Here we are dipping the pallet fork into one dip. And what we do is just dip that out in there, shake it around, check the stones. Cool, they're clean. Blow dry it. Okay, and then we'll oil it with some 9010 on the exit stone side. Right, so once you get that 9010 on there, we'll drop this down in to the escape wheel hole. Pallet fork hole next to the escape wheel. And we know the gear train is free moving at this point, so there's no need to leave that out. And then we'll get the bridge on there. And you won't oil this jewel above the pallet fork. I used to do that. I've been told on several videos that I shouldn't do that. I think it's kind of hearsay depending on who's working on the watch. It doesn't do a full rotation. It just oscillates back and forth, so I figure we don't need oil there. It can be dry. It doesn't rotate. Doesn't move that fast. I guess it does move pretty fast, but it's fine. We've got spare parts, you know. But yeah, we don't oil that. Go ahead and drop this screw in the. I guess it's really a cock, not a bridge. Just don't like that. Yeah, this is cool. I like that this barrel arbor is jeweled. Makes me feel like it's high end. You know, it's a high end watch with a jeweled barrel arbor. It's jeweled on both sides, even. You know, I don't know if it would cause friction issues if it wasn't. But either way, we'll get these screws done in there. Anybody know what watch I'm wearing in this? What watch is that? Let's call it out. All right, you can see I haven't done anything with the rusty parts yet. We'll get to that. All right. This is the click spring going back in. I like to use these little plastic levers here. I'll show you here in a second. Hold that point down into there. Spring can't go anywhere now. And we're all good. The click. I think I'd take the footage out for the click spring. Technically, the click probably should have went in first. I'll show you here in a second the way that's supposed to be. So here's how the spring and click get set in. That's how you want it to be for it to work for you. What oil is that? 1300? 1300, I think. It's whatever. Hold on, I'll look. I'll tell you exactly. I've got them labeled. I know by the color usually, but it's hard to tell. Yeah, that should be 1300. I have to look. I can't remember off the top of my head every time I do these, but we're flicking back and forth. That looks good. Oh, forgot this wheel. Don't do that. You seen what I did. Don't do it. Alright. I have spare parts, so I'm a little risky. This is 1300 also. That scratch was already on that wheel. I didn't scratch it doing that. Actually, what I did was I loosened that screw on the ratchet wheel, and then it lifted that gear up enough to get the gear in there. Should have just took it off. I was being lazy. I'd already had it apart like 4 or 5 times. So these are 90-10 going on these jewels, by the way. Yeah. So just took it apart. We're all good. I said ratchet wheel earlier, didn't I? That is not the, this is the crown wheel. Okay, so that crown wheel is upside down. I oiled the bottom side because it moves around, right? The crown wheel has this little plate that doesn't move, so you can get that on there. It's got a little stud that holds the center, so the plate doesn't move, and the crown wheel outer ring gear, I guess it would be a ring gear, rotates around, checking that we're still moving some of that lubrication around on the escapement. All good. All right, here we go. We're getting into the rust. Yeah, I probably could have got some evaporust. Probably could have put this down in there. I didn't want to melt any of the plating off of the watch. And I was worried about that. So instead, I scratched the plating off the watch. But actually, I just kind of dropped some oil on there overnight. Let it sit. Dropped some more oil on there while I was working on it. Let it sit. When I ran the watch and everything through the parts cleaner, I put some more oil on it. This is a little old method I know, like picks or hammer. I'm just tapping it, just tapping it with the hammer and a screwdriver that's not my good screwdrivers. I use one that was from an old kit. And just work it around and just keep on working it. You can see it's spinning just slowly over time. Hopefully that shaking isn't bothering you too bad. If it is, you can probably skip a minute forward in the video. That keeps working very, very slow. This is like 20 times speed, by the way. We got it out. Top and bottom are free and clear. There's a little bit of staining there and scratches, but I didn't do too bad. We got it out. It didn't break off in there. Good. This balance didn't want to fall into place, but what we're going to do is set it close, and then we're going to tap the side. This works sometimes. Don't hit it very hard. You know what happens if you hit it hard? The balance cock falls, and then you bend the hairspring. Yeah, don't do that. I didn't. This is like real-time footage. First time I put it in there on this watch. This is the first time it went in. And right here, we almost get it. Okay. You'll see amplitude is very low. That concerned me. I'm like, okay, that's weird. Push on this and it stops. Alright, well, let's look and see what's up. So I noticed that the wheel and hairspring are flat. The amplitude's low. But we'll go ahead and get this screw tightened. The screw's in there, but not tightened. Okay, let's tighten the screw and see what happens. Mind you, the cap jewels aren't lubricated at this point. They are dry. Okay, got the screw for the balance cock tight now, and amplitude's way up. That looks good. Inshake's good. Hairspring's flat. We're all good. We're going to go ahead and oil the rest of these train wheels. This is 90-10 going onto these pivots. Yep, there's the cap jewel at the top of the screen. That's 1300 going onto that barrel arbor. Put too much on there, just like always. What'd I say that was called? Clutch wheel. Gotta have some 9501 on that. We do not want to have to replace that again. That must have been dry for years, and it worked itself to where the metal had ground away on both parts. So we'll over lubricate that in this channel's fashion. This is the winding pinion. We'll drop it down in there. Yeah, those are all new parts. Well, they look good, and they're from a used movement, but new to me. Alright, go ahead and get this crown stem lined up. This was kind of fighting me a little bit. Did not want to go into that. Here we go, and okay, looks like we got it. Cool. Let's get some of these springs back in there. I like this little plastic stick I got. This thing's great for these springs, man. You just hold it there and it can't fling away. That's awesome. We got a little bit of 9501 there on the bottom of that post of this yoke. And we'll not put that where it goes. Well, that's where it goes right there, but now we get the spring on there, it'll move it, and then I assembled it the rest of the way without putting it where it goes. I don't know if I deleted that footage or not. I assembled it with it right there. Didn't actually push it into where it goes the first time around. So, yeah, here's what I'm talking about. That screw that I forgot to put in with the main plate bridge. Yeah, that one. You gotta put that screw in before the bridge goes on, because it won't fit. It won't fit. I think this time around you can see that I'm putting the yoke back where it goes, over lubricating it. That is not where it goes. That is. Okay. That's where it goes. Nice. Get this spring on there. You want to be careful not to break this. It is spring loaded while you're trying to do this. I like to use this plastic stick again, basically for everything on those parts. I cut a lot of the screw footage out. Just testing that. All looks good. This is the intermediate wheel, I believe. That's tapered. You want to put the tapered part down. At least every time I've ever seen it, the tapered part goes down. This wheel has a spring-loaded pivot. The pivot gets put into its pivot hole, and there's spring pressure against it. Why? Probably to reduce wear on the cannon pinion. Yeah, so that 1300 shouldn't probably went down in that hole, so I'm gonna clean that up. That was 1300 on the friction spot of the cannon pinion, which is actually not frictioned, it's free floating. The friction comes through the great wheel and this other wheel on the left for the hand set. This bridge here was one that was missing a screw. So we pull a screw from the spare movement. These are tiny. I need to sharpen my tweezers. I need to sharpen my screwdriver blades too, to be honest. I think this is a calendar spring. Yes, this is the calendar spring for the jump hour. Same thing, pointy plastic stick, and it can't fly away. Now the rest of the assembly of this watch, man, I don't like it, right? Almost every piece for the rest of the assembly of the dial side of this watch is just like slapped on there. There is no like exact location. I mean, obviously there's an exact location, but there is no like obvious location that they go onto. They just kind of lay there on top of each other over and over again until it's together. And I struggled with it the first time around, but I had it apart and back together so many times, fighting issues and whatnot, that I learned where they went. But yeah, hopefully if you're working on one of these, this helps you a little bit. I had to take it back apart because the great wheel friction was bad. So I had to take this watch all the way apart. And I was trying to troubleshoot why the hour and hands weren't working, and I assumed it was the cannon pinion. But I couldn't figure out, if it was a gear-related issue or what was going on, and that's what it ended up being. That wheel on the great wheel was supposed to be friction fit. It was just free spinning. Ordered new tools that I don't have to fix that. Actually, I'm going to use fingernail clippers to crimp it, but I had to order a tool to be able to pull the gear off of the wheel without damaging anything. My staking set doesn't have the ability to do that, so pretty cool. As you can see, what I'm talking about, these parts just kind of lay there. Like there's no indentation where this goes. They just kind of lay on top of it. And they move. They're slotted for like variation. It's crazy. I mean, clearly there's like the stud, or what would they call that? A dowel. There's a dowel for this spring, that where it goes, and then the screw hole. And it can only go in one spot, but it's not really obvious. So I struggled putting it together because I didn't take any pictures. Same with this. Check this out. This wheel just sits right there. It doesn't get held in, like it just sits right there, and then you put a screw in it, and it's happy. Okay, well, check this out. We're gonna, right now I think we're going in the correct time motion. So this would be midnight, and it's about to click over. And it clicked. Cool. So now I noticed this. If you run these back, there's no quick set function unless you count this. You run it back to about 9 p.m., and then you go back to midnight, it'll click over again. That's pretty good to know. So this date dial indicator, it just kind of lays on here too, with these springs holding it in place. I mean, there's kind of a rough outline, but it can only go in so many spots, right? Because that's not that big of a deal. Everything else is that big of a deal. There I am, just kind of messing with it. This thing just lays on there. There's no like indication other than the bolt holes where this thing goes. And I guess you got the lubrication points to reference, but it just kind of like lays on there against these springs. And I guess you can take that other spring off with that. They go against each other. I don't know. Missing a screw again. They're at the bottom. I don't show putting that screw in, but that screw goes back in. This is the first assembly. I had to take the watch back apart, and when I put it back together, that screw is in there. Okay, you've seen me do these before. I have a bad habit of flinging these across the room and having to wait for them when I can't find them. I bought an assembly set of cap jewels, so yes, they're organized and size specific, and now I can buy assortments and refill my tubes. You want to just clean those, put a drop of oil on them, put them back together, drop them in. Very careful. These springs are very breakable. I didn't scratch the dial right there. It was already scratched, I think. I don't remember scratching it. That sucks. I didn't even know about that until I just watched this video while I'm doing the voiceover. The reversing wheels. Okay, this is how you put this together. Now, you'll see that these have like a white greasy looking film on them. That's from the lubetta. That's the lubrication. You'll see it more when I flip it over. I'm struggling to figure out how to put these back together because I didn't take any pictures, and this is like the first time I've ever worked on this. That seems to be the right way. I remember that there was a gear. I did take a video, so I was able to look back at the video, but yeah, this is the only way this plate can go on. So in case you wanted to know, that's pretty much how the reversing automatic wheel works. And that's how you take it apart and lubricate it and put it back together. Now that main barrel spring catches, it should slide. So really, I should probably leave the automatic works off of the watch. But if it breaks the mainspring, it breaks the mainspring, you know? That's something that you're going to have to decide whether you want to spend the money on the new mainspring or leave the automatic works off or just send it, you know? I'm just going to send it. Here we're checking the function. The rotor's spinning around in both directions, making sure the reversing wheels are working. They are. There's no noise. This is the clamp here for the rotor. This holds the rotor or oscillating weight onto the automatic works so it can't fall off. It's a pain for some reason. Alright. Doing my best not to annoy you with random rambling. Let's go ahead and get this dial on here. And I cleaned this dial up with just water. Water and a Q-tip. Being very careful not to touch the indices. We're going to go ahead and replace this missing dial screw. This came from a donor movement. Check, make sure the date function flicks over and is still aligned. Looks good. We got it at midnight. We'll go ahead and set the hour hand on. Alright, we got the rest of the hands set. Confirmed that they're not touching anything. And now onto the case. So here we got a new angle. And what we're doing is taking the bezel apart. We're going to take all the scratches out of the crystal by polishing it up with these polishing sticks, basically sandpaper. And then once we get up to like 7,000 grit step by step, I'll polish it with my Dremel and then finish it off with some polywatch. 9 times out of 10, this will fix any issues with acrylic crystals. You know, this is sped up. This is a 10 times speed clip. You can see how long and how much effort it takes to do this. But at the end, we'll go ahead and put this bezel on, and it was worth it because the crystal no longer has any scratches, and it'll look new, but it's still the original crystal that was on the watch when we bought it. I know you can probably hear my air in the background now, but I'm so close to the end, I'm just going to go ahead and finish this audio. Here you'll see me doing this time grapher, and you'll see me, this is sped up clearly, but I'm regulating the watch on camera for you, and this is the final time grapher I got. If you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I make videos, you know, maybe once a month. Not frequently as some of the other channels, but you know, watches are expensive, parts are expensive, time and labor take a while, editing takes a while. Got a lot going on, but I do appreciate you guys watching and commenting. I see a lot of you out there that are commenting and liking a lot of my posts and videos, so just know that you guys that are frequent flyers of the channel, I appreciate you. Yeah, thanks for watching. Here we're going to go ahead and get this case back on and get you some final shots of this watch as it's set. And this is a wrist shot. I'm very happy with how this watch turned out. Yeah, it's great. Like this vintage beads of rice speedle bracelet. Looks perfect on this watch. Thanks for watching. Yeah, stay tuned, man.